Hey everyone, and welcome back to Health Live. Today we're going to be going on a deep dive into something pretty fascinating.
Yeah,
It's neurotheology.
that's right.
So it's where science and spirituality basically collide.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered, what's actually happening in your brain when you feel a sense of awe or, really deep faith or like a connection to something bigger than yourself?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're here to explore today.
That's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
We often think of spirituality as, this intangible thing,
Right.
this mystical thing that's completely separate from our physical bodies.
Right.
But neurotheology suggests that there might actually be a biological basis for these experiences.
Whoa. Okay, so you shared some research with me before this, and my mind was blown.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking brain bumps, split brain studies, even nuns hooked up to brain scanners while they're having mystical experiences.
That's amazing.
Where do we even begin to unpack all of this?
Well, I think a good starting point is this idea of a God spot. This notion that there's one specific area in the brain that is responsible for all things spiritual.
Yeah.
So back in the 1950s, a neurosurgeon named Wilder Penfield, he was doing some research on epilepsy patients,
Mm-hmm.
and he stimulated different parts of their brains, specifically the temporal lobes,
Okay.
and some of them reported having religious experiences.
So that's where this whole God spot idea came from.
Exactly.
Wow, that's fascinating, but also kind of simplistic, right? Like, our brains are way too complex for something that profound to be localized to just one tiny spot.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
As much as we love a simple answer, contemporary research has pretty much debunked the God spot theory.
Okay.
Andrew Newberg,
Okay.
who's one of the leading figures in neurotheology,
Okay.
he suggests that it's more like a complex symphony of brain activity.
Okay.
Different regions,
Mm-hmm.
each with their own specialized functions, are all working together
Okay.
to create this experience of spirituality.
Okay, so if it's not just one single spot,
Mm.
what are some of the key players then in this brain orchestra?
Yay.
I came across some research about the right and left hemispheres of the brain
Yeah,
and how they each have their own unique role to play in spirituality.
that's a great point.
Yeah.
And it gets us into this fascinating world of what we call hemispheric asymmetry.
Okay.
Basically, your right brain and your left brain are wired for different things.
Right.
Think of it like this damage to the right side of the brain often makes people less responsive to negative emotions.
Okay.
So it seems to be involved in this unconscious emotional processing.
Okay, so the right side is more in tune with our feelings and intuition.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about the left side then?
The left side is more about logic and analysis.
Okay.
Studies have shown that damage to the left hemisphere can actually make people feel more negative emotions and have less pleasure.
Interesting.
So it's like the left brain is trying to make sense of those raw emotions that are coming from the right side.
Okay, so in a way, both sides are essential then for a complete spiritual experience.
Yes.
You have the feeling and the meaning-making
Exactly.
all happening in this very intricate dance between the two hemispheres.
I love that very intricate dance, yeah.
Yeah.
And to add another layer to this, we have research with split brain patients. So these are people who've had the connection between their hemispheres severed, as well as studies on individuals with schizophrenia and epilepsy,
Okay.
all point to the left temporal lobe
Okay.
as a particularly active area during religious thoughts and experiences.
It really highlights how complex this all is.
Yes, it is.
It's not just one spot or one side of the brain or one type of experience.
Right.
It's like this tapestry of neural activity.
Exactly.
And we're only just beginning to really unravel the threads.
Yeah, and the way we've gotten to this understanding is a story in itself.
Oh, really?
It's a journey through the history of how we've tried to understand the mind and the brain.
Okay.
You remember those old phrenology charts?
Oh, yeah, where they would feel the bumps on your head
Exact.
and tell you your personality.
Yeah.
I always thought that was more like fortune-telling than science.
Yeah, it does seem a bit out there now.
Yeah.
But back in the 19th century, people were convinced that the shape of your skull could reveal everything about you,
Wow.
including your spirituality.
It's amazing how our understanding has evolved.
Yeah,
So what happened after phrenology went out of fashion?
right.
Did scientists just give up on studying the brain altogether?
Not at all. Science is all about building on previous knowledge.
Right.
So in the late 1800s, the neuron doctrine emerged,
Okay.
which revolutionized our understanding of the brain's structure.
Okay.
Then in the early 1900s, we saw the rise of experimental psychology with Wilhelm Wundt establishing the first lab dedicated to studying the mind.
Oh, wow.
So instead of just looking at bumps on the head,
Yeah.
scientists started actually looking at the brain itself,
Right.
trying to figure out how it works.
So that paved the way for the incredible neuroimaging technologies that we have today.
That's exactly right.
Uh,
Now we can actually see what's happening in the brain
right.
in real time during activities like prayer and meditation.
That's incredible.
It's remarkable.
And this brings us to those fascinating studies you mentioned earlier, the
Yeah.
ones with the Carmelite nuns
Yes.
and the devout Mormons.
Yes.
I'm dying to hear more about those.
Well, these studies are prime examples of how neuroimaging can shed light on spiritual experiences.
Okay.
For example, Beauregard and Paquette.
Okay.
They studied Carmelite nuns while they were having these intense mystical experiences.
Right.
And what they found was increased activity in brain regions associated with learning memory pleasure and even unconditional love.
So those feelings of like profound connection and love that people often describe during spiritual experiences,
Right.
those are actually measurable changes in brain activity.
Exactly.
That's incredible. What about the Mormons? What did they find?
So Ferguson and his colleagues found something similar when they were studying devout Mormons during religious practices.
Okay.
They saw activation in the brain's reward and attention centers.
Right.
So it's like the brain is wired to find these experiences deeply rewarding and captivating.
You know, it makes you wonder what's happening in our own brains when we experience moments of awe or a sense of wonder.
Right.
Maybe we all have the potential for these kinds of neural fireworks.
I think that's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
And speaking of awe-inspiring brain activity, we have to talk about the incredible research on meditation and its effects on the brain.
Oh, yes. Andrew Newberg, who we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
He's done some groundbreaking work in this area.
He has.
What exactly has he found?
So his research is fascinating. He's shown that meditation can do amazing things for our brains.
I know. I read some of it.
Yeah, like he found that meditation can actually improve memory in elderly people,
Yeah.
which is huge.
It's incredible.
And it's been linked to decreases in anxiety and depression, too.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it seems like meditation could be a real game changer for mental health.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Oh.
So it's not just about feeling good like in the moment.
Right.
Meditation could have long-term benefits for our brain health.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So how does it actually work? Like what's going on in the brain during meditation?
Well, one of Newberg's most interesting findings is that meditation can lead to a decrease in activity in the parietal lobe.
Okay.
Now, this is the part of the brain that's responsible for our sense of self.
Oh.
You know, that feeling of being a separate me from the rest of the world.
Wait, hold on. So when we meditate, we're actually quieting down the part of the brain that creates our sense of self.
Exactly.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. And this might explain why people who meditate often describe feelings of transcendence,
Yeah.
of oneness with something larger than themselves. It's
Yeah.
like they're letting go of their ego and tapping into a deeper level of consciousness.
So that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like all the mental chatter just quiets down, and you're left with this sense of peace and connection.
Exactly.
It's no wonder meditation has such a positive impact on mental health.
Yeah, it really is. And it's not just anecdotal evidence either.
Oh.
There's a growing body of research showing that mindfulness practices like meditation can actually change the structure of the brain.
Really?
Yeah, leading to increased gray matter in areas associated with self-awareness, compassion, and emotional regulation.
So by practicing meditation, we can actually rewire our brains for the better.
Exactly.
That's incredibly empowering.
It is.
It's like we're not just victims of our own biology.
Right.
We have the power to shape our own minds.
Exactly. I agree. It's such a hopeful message.
It really is.
And it speaks to this fascinating connection between our spiritual practices and our neurological well-being.
Yeah.
It seems like they're not as separate as we might think.
But I do wonder, is there a downside to focusing so much on like the neurological side of spirituality? Does it take away some of the mystery and awe? Like if we can explain it all through brain activity,
Yeah.
does it somehow become less meaningful?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
I think some people do worry that reducing these spiritual experiences to just neurons firing might diminish their significance.
Right. It's like trying to explain a joke.
Exactly.
It loses its humor when you break it down too much.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a risk of oversimplifying something that's inherently complex and personal.
For sure.
And, we certainly don't want to lose sight of the profound cultural and personal meanings that people attach to their spiritual beliefs.
Absolutely. I think it's about finding a balance.
Right.
Neurotheology offers a new way of understanding these experiences,
Right.
but it doesn't invalidate the deeply personal and often ineffable nature of spirituality.
Right.
It's simply adding another layer of understanding.
So it's not about replacing faith with science.
Right.
It's about expanding our perspective
Yes.
and seeing how these two seemingly different realms might actually be intertwined. And it's important to remember, too, that science is always evolving.
It is.
You know, we can't just assume that fMRI scans can reveal like the ultimate truth about spirituality.
Right.
There's still so much we don't know about the brain.
Absolutely. We need to interpret these findings with caution.
Yeah.
And recognize that correlation doesn't always equal causation.
Right.
But as technology advances, we'll undoubtedly gain even more sophisticated tools to explore these questions.
So neurotheology is more like a starting point than a destination.
Yes.
It's opening up new avenues of exploration and inviting us to re-examine our understanding of spirituality in light of these new scientific discoveries.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And as we delve deeper, we may uncover even more surprising and awe-inspiring connections between our brains, our bodies, and our sense of the divine.
I agree.
But for now, I'm curious what stood out to you most in our conversation so far? What's got you thinking?
You know, for me, what's really hitting home is how complex our brains are and how much potential we have to tap into. Like the idea that meditation can literally change the structure of our brains, that's both amazing and empowering.
I agree. It really highlights the incredible plasticity of the brain, its ability to adapt and change throughout our lives, and it makes you wonder what other untapped potential we might have within us.
It's like we're only just scratching the surface of what our brains are capable of. And for so long, we viewed science and spirituality as separate, almost opposing forces. But neurotheology suggests they might be more like two sides of the same coin.
It's true. It's like this age-old battle between faith and reason.
Right.
But neurotheology offers a bridge between those two worlds. It suggests that maybe we don't have to choose between believing in something greater than ourselves and understanding the science behind it.
And this has the potential to impact so many areas of our lives, not just our spiritual practices. I'm thinking about healthcare, for example. What if we could harness this understanding of the brain-spirit connection to develop new therapies and treatments?
That's a fantastic point. We already see the benefits of practices like meditation for managing stress, anxiety, and even chronic pain.
Right.
But imagine if we could integrate these practices into mainstream healthcare in a more intentional way.
It could be a game changer.
It really could.
We can move towards a more holistic approach to health and well-being, one that recognizes the interconnectedness of our minds, bodies, and spirits.
Absolutely. And neurotheology could play a key role in making that happen. It could help us develop more effective treatments that address the whole person, not just the physical symptoms.
So it's not just about studying the brain for the sake of knowledge.
Right.
It's about using that knowledge to improve people's lives.
Exactly.
That's truly inspiring.
I couldn't agree more. And who knows what the future holds as research in this field continues to grow. I think we'll see even more incredible discoveries that will change the way we view ourselves and the world around us.
It's like we're on the brink of a new era of understanding, where science and spirituality can work together to unlock the full potential of the human experience.
I'm excited to see where this journey takes us, but for now, I think it's important for all of us to take a moment and reflect on what we've learned today. What are some of the key takeaways that resonated with you, and what are you curious to explore further?
It's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
You know, for me, one of the biggest takeaways is that our brains are far more powerful and mysterious than we ever imagined. And we have the ability to tap into that power through practices like meditation, mindfulness, and simply by cultivating a sense of awe and wonder in our lives.
I think that's a beautiful message to end on. We are not just our physical bodies. We are also beings of consciousness capable of experiencing profound states of connection and transcendence. And neurotheology is helping us to understand the science behind those experiences, opening up new possibilities for healing, growth, and transformation.
Well said. It's been an incredible deep dive into the world of neurotheology. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure, and to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on Health Live. We hope you've enjoyed exploring this fascinating intersection of science and spirituality. Until next time, keep those minds and spirits curious, and remember the journey of discovery is just beginning.